It's Tuesday, the 3rd of February. From the MEN newsroom, this is Channel M's Lunchtime News, and these are today's headlines. Fighting on, the widow of a cancer patient suing a bank she says hounded him in the final months of his life.
Very daunting, but David decided he wanted to make a stand, and that's what we've done.
Also coming up, counting the cost for business as day 2 of the Big Chill bites.
I think we will still see some businesses struggling today to operate, although I think overnight the gritters and the Highways Agency will have perhaps learnt from yesterday and been out there furiously gritting and clearing as much as possible.
And as Chinatown celebrates New Year, claims the council's not doing enough to help it through the recession.
I don't think Chinatown is suffering any more than any place else in Manchester. Manchester is doing extremely well in the face of a national recession at the moment.
Good afternoon. First, it's only a few days since her husband died from cancer, but already a widow from here in Manchester is promising to carry on a legal fight started by him. They claim that they were harassed by the Halifax bank in the final months of his life. She's been telling Kevin Duffy how at the same time as planning his funeral, she's also working on that court case.
I'm doing this for David. That was what widow Annette Edwards declared this week as she prepared to sue one of Britain's biggest banks for harassment. It's only 9 days since Annette's partner died from cancer. But she says she's determined to continue the legal action which the couple started together against the Halifax, now HBOS.
David was so determined that he would do this. I have to carry on for him and for myself. I'm doing it for him, obviously, but he wanted to do it, and we're so close to the case. I won't let him down, and we feel as though there's a lot of other people probably now depending on us as well, and it's very important that we get that closure.
Annette Edwards and David Lloyd have never denied owing money to the Halifax bank, although the exact amount has been in dispute, but the couple say they were taking steps to pay off what they owed. However, in the course of pursuing that debt, Annette Edwards says that the bank telephoned the couple 762 times. 2 months before his death, David said this to me.
They did not give us a minute's peace. She used to come in here, sit in the settee over there and cry her eyes out.
Were you willing to repay this debt?
Yes.
As a result, in what seems to be an unusual move, Annette Edwards is now using anti-stalker legislation to sue the Halifax bank for harassment.
Very daunting, but David decided he wanted to make a stand, and that's what we've done.
Annette Edwards' case against the Halifax is set for the Manchester Civil Justice Centre in 2 weeks' time. Kevin Duffy for Channel M News.
Around 50 schools here in Greater Manchester are closed for a second day because of bad weather. The city centre is largely clear now, but more snow still forecast on higher ground, especially the Pennines. As much as 12 inches could fall in places as the weather system bringing the cold snap moves further north. There's still disruption on the planes and trains, and some roads have become dangerous with ice patches. Trans-Pennine routes that are shut include the A57 Snake Pass, A672 Ripponden Road, A635 Home Firth Road, but we've just heard that the A58 over Blackstone Edge has now reopened. They're still working to open the Huddersfield Road from Newhay to Shaw, as well as the A53 Leek Road. Every town across England is to get a memory clinic to help treat patients with dementia. It's part of a new national strategy to deal with the condition, which already affects 700,000 people across the UK. That number's expected to double in the next 30 years. GPs will also be better trained to spot the early signs of patients deteriorating. 150 people who claim they were abused as children are planning to take legal action against Manchester City Council. They say they were assaulted at council-run homes in the 70s and 80s and are hoping to claim record damages. Well, joining us now to talk a little bit more about this is Peter Garsden, who's the solicitor representing those making the claim. Peter, good afternoon. First of all, tell us a little bit more about these allegations.
Well, they range from the 60s, 70s and 80s, and they relate to abuse that took place in council-run children's homes such as Rose Hill, Broomhouse, Mobley and others. There already has been a group which settled successfully and ended in 2007. This is a second group of largely allegations at Rose Hill in the 1980s. They relate to physical and sexual abuse and emotional abuse by a number of care workers that worked at council-run homes.
There can be quite large payouts in cases like this, can't there?
Well, due to a change in the law of January last year, it's now possible to claim what's called punitive or extra damages, which hopefully will compensate the survivors better than under the previous law.
Because of the number of claimants that you're representing, I guess this case will involve quite a lot of work. How long is it going to take to actually get this to court and hopefully find a resolution for them?
Well, at the moment we've issued an application to form the survivors, the claimants, into a group, and that's likely to come up for hearing in the next 2 or 3 months. If that's granted, then the court will give directions as to how the whole group should move forward. The last group lasted from 2001 to 2007. So it depends on the attitude of the council as to how quickly we can wrap these cases up.
By the nature of these allegations, this must be difficult for the people who say that these things happen to them. How are they coping in the run-up to this hopefully coming to court?
Well, unfortunately, every item that appears on the media reminds them of the abuse that took place in the past. So it's very, very difficult, and hopefully they'll get some counselling through their GP to help them and fortify them through the process.
OK, thank you very much indeed. We'll be following this and we'll look forward to hearing any updates as and when the case progresses. Thank you very much for joining us today. We've had a statement from Manchester City Council about this as well. A spokesman says, in view of the application for the group action legal proceedings, it would be inappropriate to comment further upon this matter at this point in time. A man's had the tip of his nose bitten off at a pub in Didsbury. He was in the Dog and Partridge on Wilmslow Road. A man he was talking to pushed him to the floor, got on top of him and then attacked him with his mouth. The victims had to have plastic surgery. Police are looking for vandals who've targeted the same grave in Wigan at least 5 times. Excrement mixed with glue has been repeatedly spread on the headstone. Relatives of the person buried there say they have no idea why it's been singled out. A robber's been jailed after smashing his way into a convenience store at Northern Moor. James Jackson has been sentenced to 3 years behind bars. This is CCTV footage of him breaking through the door of the one-stop shop on Moorcroft Road. Just before that, staff had locked the door after a customer said that they'd seen a man outside putting a plastic bag on his face. One of the female assistants was injured in the raid. A man from Hazel Grove is trying to find a male nurse who saved his life on board a plane back to Manchester Airport. Darren Smith's heart had stopped beating and he wasn't breathing while 30,000 feet in the air. The mystery lifesaver, who's thought to be from Stepping Hill Hospital in Stockport, helped treat him along with another person while the plane was diverted to land sooner.
When one of the nurses got to me, I'd pretty much, I was sure I'd pretty much had it. With the use of the defibrillator on the plane, they sort of got me back from it.
And have you spoken to either of the nurses yet?
I've only got a phone number for one of them, a lady in Cumbria, and she was very nice. I spoke to her yesterday, and she sort of filled in the blanks because the lights went out for me, and I didn't realise what was going on until a good couple of days later when I was in intensive care.
And what about your other Good Samaritan?
We don't know who he is. We've got no details of who he is. But if he'd like to make himself known, I'd like to say thank you as well.
Some news of a big rugby match coming here in the summer and the rest of the sport now with the details. Here's Sam Goodman.
Thank you very much, James. Well, yes, the England Rugby Union team are to play at Old Trafford. They'll take on Argentina on Saturday, June the 6th. In a 2-game series, the return is in Argentina a week later. It's the first time in 12 years that England have played at Manchester United's ground, and RFU officials are confident the game will be a 76,000 sellout because of the interest in the game in Greater Manchester. Well, England's first priority is the Six Nations Championship beginning on Saturday. Sale's Andrew Sheridan and Mark Cueto are in the team. It'll be the winger's first appearance for his country since the World Cup final in 2007, and fly half Matthew Tate is one of the replacements. Well, on to football, and Manchester United's match against Inter Milan in the Champions League on February the 24th is a sellout. 80,000 tickets at the San Siro have all been sold. The return leg at Old Trafford is on March the 11th, and Inter Milan have already sold their allocation for the game. Well, because of the snow, there's some postponements in tonight's football matches. In League One, Oldham's game against Bristol Rovers has been called off. Stockport's game, however, is on after it passed a pitch inspection. In League Two, Bury's game with Rotherham was called off earlier today. A Macclesfield match was called off last night. But so far, Rochdale's match is still on against Chester. Well, away from the snow and onto the ice, and Manchester Phoenix have the first semi-final in 8 years when they face the Basingstoke Bisons tomorrow, and they'll hope for a better performance than the one they had at Altrincham at the weekend.
Manchester Phoenix back to full strength, Nottingham Panthers back to 4 skaters.
I thought tonight, again, I thought we should have won tonight. I thought we were fine, and all of a sudden we lost a puck at the face-off, and next thing you know, they left a guy, and the next one again, we skated past it in the neutral zone, and again they capitalised on it. And then the shift later, they threw a puck in front of the net, hurts our deep defenseman's skate, and bloody goes in the net like an own goal. So, and it was just like, but there's no point in us jumping up and down and going crazy. We've got a big game on Wednesday against Basingstoke, and we'll get ready for that. So it's important for us to refocus. There's no point of going and jumping up and down now. It's what's happened has happened. But I mean, the guys really threw everything at them and played well. But I just thought we switched off sometimes, and I don't know if it was the fact that we had 3 games in 4 nights or whatever. But we just never. I just thought we were controlling the game until they scored.
In cricket, Lancashire's Andrew Flintoff has been passed fit for Wednesday's Test opener against the West Indies. Freddie was struggling with a side strain during a friendly match last week, but scans showed no damage. So the all-rounder who passed a fitness test yesterday is set to start in Jamaica tomorrow. And finally, in Rugby League, the Rochdale Hornets will continue their partnership with Rochdale Football Club after they allowed the Hornets to carry on playing at the Spotland Stadium. The new season kicks off a week on Sunday. Well, that's all the sport from me for now. Join me again at 5 o'clock.
Thanks very much for that, Sam. There's much more still ahead on the programme, including how much the cold snap is costing Greater Manchester's businesses, and the City Council is accused of not doing enough to help Chinatown through the recession.
And what I found is that a lot of the younger generation, dining is only part of the evening out. They're not coming to Manchester to dine, they're coming to Manchester to have a night out.
This is Channel M's Lunchtime News. Welcome back. We're here till 1 o'clock. You can always look online as well for all of our reports and headlines. That's at channelm.co.uk. On the website right now, the man going to court trying to prove that a certain type of speed camera is illegal, and the parents who are angry at plans to close a special school in Didsbury that they think will mean their children getting less help. That's at channelm.co.uk. Manchester's council is being accused of not doing enough to support Chinatown. Business leaders say the area is struggling because of the recession. As it celebrates the new year, we've sent Beverly Walkton there to find out more.
It's Year of the Ox, and the Chinese celebrate what is predicted to be a year of prosperity.
Prosperity, mate, for Chinese and also for Chelsea fans.
He's about Tiger Beer.
Prosperity and Tiger Beer, very traditional.
But there's little optimism in Manchester's Chinatown lately as eating trends and the recession hit hard.
And what I found is that a lot of the younger generation, dining is only part of the evening out. They're not coming to Manchester to dine, they're coming to Manchester to have a night out. That night out might involve dining, but that's only part of it. The sort of culture of having a 3 hours long dinner is somewhat disappearing.
But it's not just social change. Chinese traders say the city council is neglecting the area, instead focusing on modern shopping hubs like spinning fields. In Chinatown, inefficient waste collection, bad drainage and poor street cleaning led to an increase in rats last year. Not exactly the best way to entice new trade.
I don't think Chinatown is suffering any more than any place else in Manchester. Manchester is doing extremely well in the face of a national recession at the moment. As we all know, there has been the credit crunch and cash is harder to come by for certain businesses, and that's rippling right throughout the economy.
Over recent years, visitor numbers have dropped by 40%. The Chinese business community admit they've run out of ideas to reinvent themselves, but the weekend celebrations at least hold some hope.
What's so special about the Chinese New Year celebration?
Well, it's just really different, and I think the children really enjoy the different culture and the big colors, the noise. We are supporting Chinatown because we're going to go and have lunch in a Chinese restaurant here. So hopefully, you know, if other people think that way, you know, you don't have to spend a lot.
Beverly Walkden for Channel M News.
Next, the icy conditions are causing problems for a second day as the weather system bringing snow to the country goes further north. There have already been further heavy downfalls on higher ground. Around 50 schools remain closed across Greater Manchester, as are some Transpennine roads. But as Kevin Duffy's been finding out, not everyone's being beaten by the snow.
Parts of Britain and plenty of Greater Manchester may well have ground to a halt because of the snow, but over at Friars Primary School in Salford, it's business as usual. Dozens of schools have told the kids to stay away because of the snow, but over at Friars, the kids have got special protection to help them brave the chill. Teacher Jill Wood has given everybody a lesson in how to get things done.
We approached my dad's firm, Bywater, put in a bid for two hours directors, and they supplied us with first wetsuits.
Right, and how important are they?
So they can play outside in all weathers.
Speaking of all weathers, keen amateur photographer Stephen Tarnowski certainly wasn't letting the snow stop him from getting out and about, and he doesn't think it should stop anybody else either.
Nothing stopped. We still had to go to school. Everybody went to school. And I was about 4 foot and a bit then. I was 8 years old. And the snow was just below my shoulders. It was that bad. We had to dig his way to the toilet because we were outside loos then.
Kevin Duffy for Channel M News.
Thanks, Kevin. Staying with this story, it's estimated a fifth of staff across the country stayed off work yesterday, costing the economy billions of pounds. On this morning's breakfast show, Byron and Nikki were given some help counting the cost by the Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce.
Yesterday, you know, lots of businesses were closed. They're saying that sort of 1 in 5 employees didn't even manage to get to work, and the knock-on effect of that was places like Marks and Spencer's in London had to close the stores because they had insufficient staff to keep them open. But there's lots of other reasons behind it as well. Things like schools were closed, and that has a knock-on effect to parents. You know, if you're parents of a small child and suddenly you find your school shut, then chances are you've had to take a day off work to look after your children. I mean, that happened to me yesterday. Fortunately, my daughter's old enough to sort herself out, but it does have a massive impact. And, you know, businesses yesterday really did suffer. So I think we will still see some businesses struggling today to operate. Although I think overnight the gritters and the Highways Agency will have perhaps learnt from yesterday and been out there furiously gritting and clearing as much as possible. So there's probably only a small rise today, I would think. And I think most people will now be committed to trying to get into work and get back to normal.
The funeral is taking place right now of former pop star Leroy Smith. The sweet sensation star who played keyboard on this hit, Sad Sweet Dreamer, died alone in his flat above a takeaway in Longsight that he ran. He was 56 and hadn't been seen for about a month. Relatives have gathered at Our Lady's Church in Moss Side for the service, which will be followed by a burial. Greater Manchester Police are looking into why a police officer used a disabled parking bay in the centre of town. The vehicle was photographed in the space on Fountain Street. It's not believed to have been on an emergency call-out. Holiday firm Pontins is to invest £50 million in its 6 UK sites, including Blackpool and Southport, creating more than 2,000 jobs. The new posts will include catering, retail and bar staff, as well as blue coats, and will involve a mixture of full-time, part-time and seasonal positions. The Corner House in Manchester may lead the way in promoting the arts, but a well-known film director says it's lagging behind when it comes to paying staff a fair wage. Ken Loach is accusing bosses of not paying a so-called living wage. Georgia Calvin-Smith has more.
Last year, Manchester City Council introduced its own minimum wage, which was £1.01 more than the national minimum wage, taking the hourly rate of the local authority's lowest paid staff up to £6.74. The council had hoped other employers would follow its lead, but workers at the Corner House Cinema are still being paid just £5.73 an hour. Payment that director Ken Loach has labelled as starvation wages.
I think it reflects terribly on the Corner House. If they want to keep their reputation, then I say they've got to pay the proper rate. People who go to the Corner House tend to have often a kind of radical sensibility. Now, if they know that the people who are working there are not being paid properly, I think it's going to make them think twice about going.
Workers at the Corner House have asked bosses for the Manchester minimum wage, but were told that the cinema couldn't afford to give staff a raise as the company's been making losses over the past few years.
Everybody at Corner House has been paid below the commercial rate for their jobs. We work here because, well, most of us work here because we actually enjoy what we're doing and understand that this organisation hasn't got the money to pay people. I think it's a bit unfortunate and perhaps a bit unfair that Corner House has been singled out for this.
It's not the first time that the Corner House's wage policy has been criticised. According to one member of staff, the company didn't introduce minimum wage until 2002, 5 years after the government introduced it, and that workers didn't receive holiday or sick pay until 2003, again 5 years after the government made it law.
We've changed that, we pay an hourly rate now, and anybody that was underpaid has been compensated. But this wasn't designed to be some sort of deliberate exploitation of our workers. That's the tone that I sort of object to.
Mr Loach has called for the Corner House to open its books to show where its money is being spent. The cinema has pointed out that, as a registered charity, its accounts can be viewed on the Charity Commission website. Georgia Calvin-Smith, Channel M News.
Now, there's still plenty of snow around and there'll be some lingering through into tonight as well. Michelle Eagleton is here now with the forecast.
Well, we're looking at a better day than yesterday. Most of the snow has dispersed from across the region. We did have a little bit in higher ground places this morning, but this afternoon, completely different picture. We are expecting some heavy rain, and that should clear the majority of the snow that is lingering, as I say, in higher ground places like Oldham and Rochdale, and even Glossop. I know they've been suffering quite a bit. Now, it is going to be very cold outside, so do wrap up nice and warm. Temperatures are about 2 degrees, some of the highs that we're expecting, and they're going to fall to -1 overnight, so it is going to be very, very chilly. And also, we are going to see some heavy cloud as well, but what will really dominate in the afternoon is a breeze that's creeping through from the southerly direction. It's going to make it feel a lot colder than those temperatures, and then overnight it is pretty much a different picture, and the next couple of days are a mixed bag. I can tell you that Wednesday we're expecting sunshine and cloud. Thursday a fair bit of rain is expected. Friday it looks like the snow's back, but don't worry, because Saturday we're going to have some sunshine.
You're watching Channel M's Lunchtime News. These are Tuesday's top stories. A widow whose husband died from cancer just over a week ago is promising to carry on his legal fight against a major high street bank. Annette Edwards is getting ready to take H-Boss to court, accusing them of harassing her husband David Lloyd in the final months of his life. Around 50 schools remain closed across Greater Manchester because of the icy weather. Further snowfalls have been happening on higher ground. A network of so-called memory clinics are planned to treat dementia in every town across England. It's part of a new national strategy to deal with the condition. 150 people who claim they were abused as children are planning to take legal action against Manchester City Council. They say they were assaulted at council-run homes in the 1970s and 1980s. We'll have more more on those stories in our early evening news later. That's with Andy Crane from 5 o'clock tonight. But from me and the rest of the Lunchtime team, have a good afternoon. Bye-bye for now.